Sobel. We know it was a long speech. We had a lot of issues on the table. We've got the midterms kind of leaning down upon us. Do we think that either party reached the goals that they were set before the speech?
Well, to the extent that the president was speaking to Republicans and his base, I think he did that well. I thought Spanberger, the Virginia governor, Abigail Spanberger, did very well for the Democrats in the counter speech after the State of the Union. We are getting very, very close to the midterms at this point, and so these speeches, both of them, really had that in mind.
A lot of patriotism in the speech, a lot of patriotism in the room. By design, Greg?
Yeah, I mean, we saw several made-for-TV moments, right? We saw several medals of honor that were given to veterans and members of the military. We saw the U.S. men's hockey team that was brought in and recognized for their gold medal efforts there in Milan Cortina. But this was sort of the script, right? This is what President Trump does well. He's a TV guy. He gets the audience, and he did all those things to draw people in to sort of paint a rosy picture of America that is wrapped in patriotism and economic success. But we know what the polls say. We know what public sentiment is that there's this gap between what people believe is happening versus what he said is happening. But I think to Brian's point, Republicans are probably very happy with what they saw from him because he stuck to the script, which is to say his policies are working and to blame Democrats for all the bad stuff.
Classic Donald Trump.
Yeah.
But does that perception work at this point? Because certainly we've seen in the polls, I mean, when you're running for office and you're saying, okay, I'm going to make the economy better, that's one point. But you've got the tariffs, you've got the Supreme Court justices sitting right there. And even though you say the economy is great, which is what he did, and you have Spanberger saying it's not, the polls, will that do enough to tell Americans it's great when they don't feel it's great?
The polls don't lie. It's the economy. It's always the economy in American politics. We have plenty of examples of where, as an example, George Herbert Walker Bush coming off the Gulf War where he won and he loses to Bill Clinton on the issue of the economy. Remember, it's the economy, stupid. Yeah. The economy trumps everything, and if people don't feel good about prices, whether it's gas or health care or prescription drugs, some of the things that Donald Trump talked about tonight, if they don't feel good about it, they won't vote for Republicans.
Well, if you look at Spanberger winning her race, she talked about affordability, as did Mamdani and all these other races that we're watching.
And that was the first sign of sort of a referendum for Democrats, as you would expect in a midterms. It's the party in power. It's a referendum on them. And sort of the alarm bells as we talk about these polls that should going off for Donald Trump and Republicans is that he's lost a lot of favor with independent voters. And those are the people that sway elections for you when you come to midterms as well as the presidential. And so a lot of those folks have said, you were elected based on the economy and what you would do to change things, and we have not felt that. That's what these voters are saying, and that should be of grave concern to Republicans as we approach November.
So what's the next step for President Trump? The speech is over. Like you said, Congress back in session tomorrow. Foreign policy. Should we be all eyes on Iran here?
Well, there's no question.
It came up tonight.
It did, and we should keep our eyes on Iran. We have a massive armada there, and to reel that back is going to be not an easy thing to do, especially because the Iranians don't seem to be making any moves to solve Donald Trump's problems on this.
You know, he talked about that he has stopped wars and he has stopped things happening, but we've certainly seen escalations, whether it's in Venezuela or Iran. Did he do what he was trying to do in expressing that he wasn't part of escalation when we see this, and certainly people are worried that the next steps could be forthcoming very quickly?
My view is that on the domestic side of the speech, mediocre. On the international side of the speech, I thought he made a lot of very, very good points, to be fair about it.
And you saw Democrats standing in ovation when he said that, look, I would like to handle this diplomatically. Right. They're set to have talks in Geneva on Thursday. Iran and U.S. are. But he said, I don't want them to have a nuclear weapon. And that got applause from both sides of the aisle. One of the few moments that we actually did see that sort of bipartisanship tonight.
Midterms 8 months away. What is the script for the Democratic Party moving forward after this speech?
I mean, and I think to Brian's point, Spanberger hit it, right? Affordability. Money. And she put it in very plain terms tonight, which was effective, and she asked questions of the people watching 13 minutes end to end in that speech, but it was effective in the way that it made people question, are these policies better for me and my family? Are things improving? And the answer that she said was no, and I think, again, to the polls, a lot of them say no as well.
And immigration and Epstein, those were touched as well, and certainly, certainly by the buttons we saw. But immigration, he tried to frame it, the president tried to frame it in one space. Spanberger tried to frame it in another space. That is certainly something Americans have been reacting to.
Oh, there's no question that what happened in Minneapolis really kind of turned the tide in terms of ICE. But I don't think think Americans have a problem with arresting very bad people. And so this is all kind of in the mix that will be talked about as the midterms come. But, you know, we reflect on the fact that this was a very long speech. He's known for long speeches. Just in contrast, Richard Nixon, way back, averaged 37-minute State of the Union speeches.
Well, I will say this to end on a positive note. You know, the entire room did stand when they tipped their cap to the Coast Guard swimmer
Absolutely.
who saved
Absolutely.
all those
For sure.
people at Camp Mystic. And that, it didn't happen often when everyone stood in that room tonight, and that had to be addressed.
Those were great moments.
It was. Brian, Greg, thank you. Appreciate
Absolutely.
it. Got it.
And you can find all of our coverage on tonight's State of the Union address